All right, we're back. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. Brian Dawson filling in for every time I do that. It's because I've got this out pouch in my lip. I can't talk. Anyway, filling in for Andrew McLean, and I'm bringing back on Seth Gruber for one more segment so that he can talk about his book. And so for the last, I don't know, 3 years since I've started 1819 News almost 5 years ago. And one of the problems that I encountered was being able to communicate to the Christian donor community, which I'm sitting here in Birmingham broadcasting now, which is one of the most, it's tied with Grand Rapids as the most philanthropic city in the United States of America per capita, filled with Christian donors who are giving to causes that they believe are doing kingdom work. But there's this idea of preserving and advancing Christian civilization that is absent these donor portfolios. They give to Works of Mercy, Wells in Africa, discipleship and evangelism, but it's this idea of understanding that the outwork of the gospel is actually the creation of a Christian civilization, and that civilization creates flourishing here on earth. And I could go on and on, but I'm going to let Seth do that. And that it's worth protecting, but not only protecting, but advancing. And all the thoughts and everything that I've worked on in my own mind and written down notes and everything. Seth wrote a book that basically says everything, and so he gave me all the words. I wanted to talk about it. It's called The Last Stand: Christ or Chaos. Talk about this book and where people can get it, Seth.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. The Last Stand, Christ or Chaos, The War for the West is the book. Was glad to have your endorsement. And the film by the same name, The Last Stand, they go together. People can go to thelaststand.film, thelaststand.film, and they can host a screening of this film for free the rest of this 2026 year, America's 250th, at any church or Christian school for free. Thelaststand.film. That'll direct you to the book page as well if you'd rather buy a book for money that supports the Christian pro-life industry instead of gay Amazon. Thelaststand.film. And it's the glorious and forgotten, and I'll add long neglected history, Brian, of Christian resistance against the forces of evil. This interesting agnostic historian Brit named Tom Holland wrote a book called Dominion, The Making of the Western Mind. It's a New York Times bestseller. Again, agnostic historian, a British man. And the whole book, if I can summarize, is basically like, hey, you dum-dums in the West, you think ideas like the rule of law, the sanctity of life, the equality of the sexes, you think these ideas come from like the Greek and Roman philosophers? Wrong. They come from the New Testament. And he basically starts at Calvary and goes all the way through the Beatles and then into the woke movement about how even the language that liberals use, oh, the poor, the foreigner in our land, the widow, the little children, we need to protect them. That language doesn't exist without the borrowed Christian moral imagination that built the West that was a byproduct of the gospel. And so Christianity is sort of we breathe in its trace elements and it infuses our moral thinking on both the left and the right, whether we know it or not. So his contention is basically you live in Christendom, whether you know it or not, and whether you want to or not. And so it's like the fat kid who wants to have his cake and eat it too. You cannot have these virtues, these concepts like rule of law, sanctity of life, equality of the sexes, freedom of speech, and all these things, without the Christendom, the branch of which you're trying to chop off, you crazy liberal, right? That's kind of the whole concept. And so, but we don't understand this anymore. That's why Hilaire Belloc, Chesterton's best friend, was the first one to analogize Western civilization to a cut flower, right? And so we rip the flower, the rose, out of its soil. And then collectively on the left and right, what we've done, Brian, is we put that rose in a vase and we put it on our kitchen counter. And as libs or conservatives, we look at it and we go, isn't that such a pretty flower? And we enjoy its beauty and its remnants. But hold on a second. Hold on. Cut flowers are already dead. They're already dead. They just have like some life support called the water that you put in the vase. And then the petals start falling and we smell it. What a nice flower. It's like, hold on. It is a nice flower, but wait, it's dead. It's dead. You ripped it out of the soil. That's Western civilization. Okay. And the soil was Christian soil. And I want to go one step further at the risk of offending someone, Protestant Christian soil. That America is the most powerful child of the Reformation. England was the most powerful child of the Reformation, but now America is the most powerful child of the Reformation. And we've ripped that flower out. And so what's the role of the church? It's to plant that flower back into the soil that made it great, plant new seeds, water them, and defend them when they're attacked. And so we're really in this last stand moment. Why? Because of weird baby killing and sex cult worship. And that's not just like hyperbolic or red meat for the base. That's very accurate. J.D. Unwin wrote a book in 1934, 92 years ago, called Sex and Culture. Oxford anthropologist, ethnologist, all the credentials and bona fides that ought to make you respectable, but his findings were a total indictment on liberalism and the false promises of the sexual revolution. So his findings have been buried, and you won't learn this in universities today. And he looked at 86 civilizations over 5,000 years. 86 civilizations over 5,000 years, and asked the question, why do civilizations rise and thrive, and why do civilizations decline and fall, Brian? And his findings were incredibly consistent and, let me say, historically ruthless, and ought to be a wake-up call and a reminder that we're in a last stand moment, like we stand on the brink of civilizational collapse, actually. And so he said that civilizations who coupled prenuptial chastity with absolute monogamy, fancy language for don't have sex before you get married and only have sex with your spouse after you get married, but there was a legal aspect to that, like legally that was protected. When civilizations coupled those together for a long, long time, those civilizations, he said, gave us the best art, architecture, culinary, so the best food, the best buildings, families, standing armies, everything. They were culturally prowess in all ways, and the most energetic. They built things. And then he looked at it in the inverse, and he said civilizations who codified total sexual freedom. That's interesting. So it wasn't just a cultural change. It was a legal recognition of that cultural change. It was the codification of total sexual freedom. He said that if that didn't change, within 90 to 100 years, they were done. Those civilizations were done, and they were replaced by another civilization that still had great social energy. Holy moly. There was not one exception to that rule, Brian, in 86 civilizations over 5,000 years. Wow. So sexual liberation does not release cultural energy, it kills it. So when did America embrace total sexual freedom? 1973. Roe v. Wade, baby killing, because you don't have total sexual freedom until you have orgasms without responsibility. You have to have the legal right to kill the baby that's the product of your sexual freedom before you're totally sexually free. What else happened in 73? Endangered Species Act. Same year that we declared open season on preborn little humans, same year, we gave greater legal protections to sea turtles and porpoises, fulfilling G.K. Chesterton's prophetic warning that wherever there is animal worship, there will be human sacrifice. Interesting. And one more thing, the United States Supreme Court removed its obscenity laws in 73, thereby allowing the legal distribution of pornography. So if you all are Christians and you read your Bibles like me, if you're listening, those three things sound a lot like Molech, Baal, and Ashtoreth. Baby killing, animal worship, and sex cult worship. And when those things are codified, especially tolerated, but certainly codified, civilization started 90 to 100-year ticking clock to civilizational replacement. That's why we're in a last stand moment. We're in the last possibly 30 to 40 years to save this republic, and it will happen when we protect the little babies and get rid of the weird sex cult worship and make the family great again. So the Last Stand film and book looks at all of these themes. You can get the book wherever you get your books, but you can host a screening of this film, dear listeners, in your churches for free or your Christian schools by going to thelaststand.film. And of course, people can support us if they want to get behind a Christian ministry that's tearing down the high places and mobilizing historically the most powerful organism for cultural change, the blood-bought bride of Christ.
Amazing. Seth, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and just the gifts that God's given you and the way that you've used them to further the kingdom and, again, preserve and advance Christ's kingdom, our civilization. And so really appreciate you taking this 45 minutes to spend with me here and the listeners in Birmingham and really all of northern Alabama. So appreciate you, brother, and can't wait to catch up over a cigar.
Let's do it.
Sounds good, brother. All right. Well, this is Talk 99.5. This is The Line. Brian Dawson filling in for Andrew McLean. We'll be back after this break. All right, here we are. We're back. Talk 99.5. This is The Line with Andrew McLean, except it's not with Andrew McLean because he's not here and I'm filling in for him. Brian Dawson here, CEO of 1819 News, and want to plug again the premier news organization in the state of Alabama, with a full newsroom, putting out 16 pieces of news content every single day, as well as op-eds, podcasts. We own radio shows, and we're the official news provider for Talk 99.5. And we've been around for not even 5 years, and we've already taken over the state as far as sharing news and information so that the people of Alabama can be informed when they go to participate in their civic duties. And the fruit of that can be clearly seen in this move towards a conservative Christian ethos in the state over the last 4.5 years. The Lord has decided to pour out his blessing upon our land, the state of Alabama, as evidenced through so many legislative changes. Even in the realm of education, you're seeing religious release time has been enacted to where the students are going to be able to be released during school hours to receive religious instruction off of the actual school site. There's an incredible ministry. Maybe I'll bring him on tomorrow. A guy named Joel Penton who has LifeWise that utilizes that legislation that was passed, and they will go and pick up those students and bring them to a church or another place where they receive religious instruction during school hours. The Ten Commandments making their way back into the schools. There's going to be a vote on the ballot in November for bringing prayer and the pledge back into schools. So many good things are happening. This comeback, this resurgence of a conservative Christian ethos in the state, and 1819 News has played a huge part of that. And so, on one hand, 1819 News is a statewide, state-focused news and multimedia company with the express purpose of taking out AL.com as the media outlet of record in the state. And on another hand, as we, as a 501c3, and we're talking to donors and investors in our work, that we've had incredible men and families who've stepped up and supported us with tremendous sums of philanthropic capital to do this work. We're a Christian ministry that's dedicated to the preservation and expansion of our Christian civilization and our way of life. And so we defend our way of life, and we want to see it advanced. And media is the way that we do that. We've seen the way that the communist Marxist left has used media and institutions to essentially, decay our culture. And all the guests that I brought on, whether it was Chad Jackson, whether it was Stan McDonald, whether it was Seth Gruber just now, it's this consistent theme. There's these civilizational enemies who are coming in to conquer this beautiful, great thing that we have. And it's our civilization, it's our way of life, and it's under attack. And when things are under attack, we need to defend them. And it's on that note, speaking of Christians defending things that they are supposed to protect, I want to talk about this story that's been viral on Twitter. Or X, excuse me, X. I'm going to continue to call it Twitter, and I'm going to continue to tweet. What the hell do you call it when you post on Twitter? If Twitter's not Twitter, it's not a tweet. So am I tweeting on X? I don't know. But thank God for Elon Musk. There's that. But before I go into that diatribe, this trending story on X, there's a pastor in Louisiana. There was a young man, dare I even call him a man, a young punk, 20 years old, threatened this pastor, his wife, and I think his children, threatened to rape and kill them. And so there's somehow, in just God's gift, video of this guy chasing down the man who threatened his family and just whipping his ass. I mean, whipping his ass. It's unbelievable. And he doesn't just push him. The young 20-year-old punk actually swung on the pastor, and then the pastor just absolutely pummeled him. I mean, it was like a UFC fight where the ref didn't call it when it was over. And he's just pummeling his face, and the guy flips over to his belly, and so the pastor grabs him by the hair and pulls his hair back so that his head's up, and he just continues punching him in the face. And then he gets up and then just kicks him in the face, and it's outstanding. And there's a lot of Christians that are offering criticism of the behavior of this pastor, saying that that's not what a man of the cloth should do. Pastors should not engage in this behavior. And it's like, okay, so if you're a man of the cloth, you have to let people rape and kill your wife and children. Where is that? And so this is a symptom of this effeminate Christianity that's taken over. Okay, this idea that in order to be a Christian, you have to cut your balls off, and that form of effeminate big evangelicalism is being rejected en masse. Unfortunately, it means that there's lots of young men who are seeking to get rid of, I call it big gay Eva, which is this big modern big box evangelicalism. is being rejected wholesale by Gen Z. And unfortunately, it's causing a lot of men to search for historic, transcendent faith, and they're leaving Protestantism. And I actually don't even think evangelicalism and Protestantism are the same thing. I'll get into that. But they're leaving evangelicalism and they're skipping over historic Protestantism and they're jumping into Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. Again, I'm not a guy that's going to sit there and say that Orthodox aren't Christian or that Catholics aren't Christian. However, I believe that historic Protestantism is the best way to practice the Christian faith. We've seen the fruit of it. Western civilization, specifically um, the United Kingdom and Britain, when they were at their peak, were, as Seth Gruber pointed out, they were Protestant, and America is Protestant. We're products of the Reformation, the outworking and the thought of John Calvin, Martin Luther, John Knox, all these people and these theologians and these reformers and these people who fought. The outworking of their thought, their faith, their fight is America. Okay, and these were bold men. These were bold men who fought, and that historic Protestantism has an element of masculinity that modern evangelicalism lacks. And so these young men are leaving modern evangelicalism and these big box Christianity that essentially encourages men to get in touch with their feminine side. And you see these youth pastors with their skinny jeans and their fruitcakes with their gelled hair that are probably sleeping with the girls in the youth group, and it's just freaking ridiculous. And we're told that this is what a godly man looks like, wearing the most heinous, ridiculous outfits on stage. It's just insane. Okay. And it's no wonder, this form of Christianity has done nothing to stop this communist onslaught, because Christians have been told not to engage in politics, because if you engage in politics, you'll lose your witness, you'll ruin your witness. And that, the people that we need to be witnessing to are these radical leftists. And if we would just understand them and accept them and tolerate them, we could win them to the kingdom. Well, here's the thing. Tim Keller believed that we could win people to Christ in his kingdom by tolerating and affirming these liberal, kind of communist Marxist beliefs. And Charlie Kirk thought we could win people to into the kingdom of Christ by confronting those liberal beliefs. Both of them did it in love. Both of them cared about the souls of those that they were encountering, but one tolerated and affirmed these views, and the other confronted them. And one of these people brought us the closest thing that we've seen to revival in my lifetime. That would be Charlie Kirk. And the other brought us the woke church. And so maybe we should choose who we're listening to accordingly. And no one was more in tune with the young men of this nation than Charlie Kirk. And he is a true Christian martyr. He died preaching. The day that he died, he was preaching the gospel to thousands of people. And he was confronting these wicked ideologies that are ruining our civilization. And he was doing it by standing on the word of God. He was unashamedly Christian, but he was political. And it was something that Christians need to understand. And I would say specifically the Christian donor class, that when I go and meet with some of these Christian men to talk about investing in 1819, they're like, "Oh, you're a political ministry. It's political." It's like, okay, well, no, I mean, not really, but like politics, everything. If you're looking at the entire Word of God, the Word of God outlines all kinds of different things that would be considered political positions. If we stand on the Bible and we're faithful to it, we're going to run afoul of what would be these dirty politics, okay? And so there's no way to be a faithful Christian and not engage in the political sphere if we're standing for truth and we're standing on his word. Specifically when we live in this society, this formerly Christian ethos, this formerly Christian civilization that has been hijacked by communists and Marxists. Again, what do you call it? Communism, Bolshevism, Marxism, secular atheism, all of these, secular humanism, all of these isms, all they are is they're the same exact thing. They're just different names for the same antichrist ideology. Okay, it's in all of these isms are direct opposites of the Christian faith. Okay, the Christian, whatever God says is good, these communist Marxist Bolsheviks, whatever you want to call them, they call it, whatever God says is good, they say is bad, and whatever God says is bad, they put it in a parade in front of your children. It's literally antithetical to the Christian faith. That is the worldview that has taken over our universities. That is the worldview that's taken over media. That is the worldview that's taken over Hollywood. That is the worldview that's taken over even these big evangelical institutions, okay, that have been hijacked. I've guest hosted here before and brought on Meg Basham in her book, Shepherds for Sale, goes into how the church has been completely co-opted by these people, that have hijacked all these other institutions. Well, they've got seminaries and churches too, and the ultimate goal is to destroy the family. I'll have to get into that tomorrow. When we come back, we'll have Scott Stadhagen, chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, talking to him about their dinner. This is Talk 99.5. This is The Line. We'll be back. All right, we're back. Talk 99.5. This is the line. Brian Dawson filling in for Andrew McLean. Um, Now I'm bringing on the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, Scott Stadhagen, a very good friend of mine who's doing incredible work, not only at the party, but also in the state legislature. Tried and true conservative who's usually going up against the establishment. Really, really appreciative of him. And Scott, thank you for taking your time and welcome to the show.
Brian, thanks for having me on, man. I'm sitting here listening to commercials before I'm on. I don't know if it's strategically having me with low T and vision loss.
I said earlier on the show, they said, "How are you going to do a 4-hour show?" I said, "Well, it's going to be nicotine, it's going to be caffeine, it's going to be creatine, and then it's going to be the testosterone injections." Other than that, I couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, I am getting close to 50, to be honest, but thanks for having me on, Brian.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I want to give you a chance to talk about your dinner because I'm super excited about it. An unbelievable cast of characters. But before we jump into that, just talk about these victories that we've seen here. We just got through the primaries. We got through the runoffs for Republican supermajority state. That means that there's very likely chance that all these people who won the primaries and won the runoffs are going to be there. But it's pretty incredible up and down the line, the quality of people that we had, one, going against each other, and then two, that won. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the primary election cycle was, I mean, it was a little intense, but I will tell you, when you have that kind of caliber of people running for an office, I mean, there's some of them that literally people are coming up to me saying, I don't know who to vote for because both of them are good.
Yep.
And that is a positive direction for our party moving forward. I'm very, very excited about the starting lineup we have. I keep saying starting lineup because we've got our team, and coach and his vision and his conservatism and what he's going to do for tomorrow in Alabama is going to be unbelievable. Going down to John Wall, all the way across our constitutional seats, strong conservatism. We are going to be in good hands next quadrennium.
Yeah, it couldn't be more exciting, and it hasn't been that way in the state for a long time. To not one that the good guys win, but two that you got good guys going against other good guys. There wasn't a ton of what I would call establishment candidates. They didn't really have a lot of kind of that establishment guard that's in the Republican Party. Didn't even really seem that they had any people in the race, which to me was mind-boggling. But I think it speaks to the work that you and guys like you have been doing in the legislature, the work of 1819 News, the work of other organizations in the state, and God really just blessing us with moving the culture and the ethos of the state towards a real principled conservatism rather than people that just put an R by their name.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, we can't go wrong with any of our election results either way. I think we were going to be in good hands regardless. Unfortunately, only one person can win, right? And I do think that all candidates are very passionate about the movement. They're very passionate about what we're trying to accomplish for tomorrow in the state of Alabama. And I don't think the people who were not successful, I don't think they're done. I think they're going to move on, and I hope they support. We've already started hearing some of the other candidates backing the other people and supporting them, talking about we need to get behind our team, which that's what we should do. The primaries to me was kind of like, two brothers in the backyard toughening each other up, ready for the schoolyard playground for that big bully, and that's kind of my mindset on it. But I think moving forward, it's not the Democrats are working their tails off. I'll give it to them, but they're not gonna win. We're getting geared up, and we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna have victories on the general election.
Absolutely. Well, this will be, I think, your first big dinner as the ALGOP chairman, and John Wall did such an incredible job of really upping the ante on events, getting Trump here on multiple occasions, all the things that he did. And I was like, man, how is someone going to come in? This is before I knew you won, right? But I was like, how is someone going to succeed John Wall? I didn't even know that you had an interest in it, and you've stepped in, and now. This incredible lineup that you have coming to this dinner. Brandon Gill would probably, of course, Tuberville, but of these guys that aren't from our state to come in and get them to come here. Brandon Gill, to me, I think is the hottest thing happening in Republican politics right now. Talk about your thought, like as you wanted to prepare this dinner and do this, and the kind of current cultural moment in our country, in our state. How did you pull this together, and who are the people that are coming?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's our team at Algop headquarters, man. Between Annie, I mean, we have literally been working on this for the past 2 months pretty viciously. Have to get props to her, but we literally wanted somebody that was a speaker that represented like what we stood for, and was of like-minded in policy. Tim Burchett, my goodness, man, he is a rock star congressman in Tennessee. Brandon Gill, you are 100% right. Texas congressman, he is young. That the future is bright for him, but he is, man. And somebody asked me the other day and said, "Who is this Brandon Gill guy?" And I said, "I want you just to go on social media and watch him in committee meetings destroy the Democrats."
Mm,
They call me back and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this guy is awesome." And I was like, "I know it. You need to buy a ticket." And I am so excited about the lineup that we have. We're going to try to change things up a little bit, and it's going to be more of a performance than just a dinner. I'm wanting to get the Republicans of Alabama so excited about the general election and what we're accomplishing and what our goals are. So when everybody leaves our event, I want them to be so excited and just let it ripple throughout our state of the work that we're doing.
absolutely. And so, Coach Tuberville is going to be there. Katie Britt's going to be there. It looks like Bruce
Yes.
Pearl, Brandon Gill, Tim Burchett. Is there anybody else that's coming? I feel like I saw more faces.
Yes, yeah. So we got Brylan Hallahan. He is heading up Project Future Generation for me. One of the things that I ran on and campaigned on running for chair was reaching out and touching and educating our future generation and letting them know how important it is for them to be involved in the Republican Party and stand on our policy principles, because we can't do this forever, Brian, right?
Yeah.
So we need to educate them and let them know, hey, yeah, you just graduated high school or you're a junior in high school, but guess what? This is what we stand for. This is what we fight for, and it's for a better tomorrow for you when you raise your family one day in a good Christian environment that watches lower taxes, smaller government. We're going to be let them know like what's important after school and getting them involved. And he's going to kind of help us head that up. We met with him 2 weeks ago at headquarters, and I cannot tell you the energy and excitement behind this project moving forward, and just throughout the headquarters, man. That everybody in that office is very excited about tomorrow. We are pushing ourselves. Our motto is, we didn't do enough today. What are we going to do tomorrow to make up for the things we didn't do today?
Amen.
Having that mindset makes you feel like you're never successful, but you turn back and the finish line of success is way behind you and you've already passed it, right? So
Yeah.
we're really excited, man.
That's awesome. Last question. I think it'll create a good little conversation too. One of the things that happens when you see good conservatives get in these positions to win, um, for a very long time in Alabama, we've had very moderate, middle of the road Republicans. Kay Ivey, Bentley wasn't exactly something I would call a right wing nationalist. And we, Steve Marshall got appointed by Bentley and had incumbency. Will Ainsworth was great, but overall, the kind of overall energy, it wasn't this real right leaning, just up and down the ticket people who absolutely represent the average citizen in Alabama. And I think because of that, I think you're going to see the Democrat Party motivated at a greater rate than I think we've seen. What are your thoughts on, I guess, combating that? And do you think there's any real threat there?
They have done a good job of trying to mislead the citizens of our state. When we went into special session for redistricting the congressional seats, when we got out, we were called racist. Well, the only thing that was racist in that situation was the judicial system, who based those maps off race, and that's the opposite of what we were doing. And they have used that in these primary elections, trying to push and make people upset and mad, which is completely false. We are the opposite of what's being told and said. But I will tell you, moving forward, we are going to educate the citizens of our state. And number one, Shamari Figures in Congressional District 2 does not represent Congressional Two's voice. He just doesn't. He doesn't stand for their values and what is most important to them. He's more interested in voting on the national DNC level than representing the voice of CD2. So that is going to be the messaging. And let's go to Doug Jones. You know, he's not talking about his pro-life stance because he does not want to tell the citizens of Alabama that he is okay with killing babies.
Yep.
Coach is the opposite of that. So we're going to educate the citizens of our state. We're going to let them know where we stand and our candidates stand on policy. And that is the nuts and bolts of this election, because Coach is the biggest pro-life governor in the United States to be, and his opposition is the opposite of that. So I think that is very important, educating constituents, getting them fired up. You know, I said the other night, I've been speaking all over the state, and I told them, I said, you know, our participation on the ballots was terrible in the runoffs and in the primaries, and we can do a better job. But the problem is we are getting complacent because we think we're safe. Just like Alabama can get beat by Vanderbilt if you get complacent, right? We cannot get complacent in the future. We have got to realize they are coming after us. They are trying to do their ever-loving best to flip 2010. Now, the question is, do you want Bob, who identifies as Sue, going into the bathroom at Target with your daughter? Now, if you're not okay with that, well, you need to get out and vote. You need to fire up all of the constituents, get them out, stand on what's right. If you want a baby that's murdered, don't worry about voting. You know, and that's the kind of stuff that we're at with our policy. And I think it's so important for us to stand on strong Christian values, for not to have indoctrination of our kids in school, for crying out loud. We got to squash it, and that's what's most important this general election. We have to get our message out.
Amen. Well, that's fantastic stuff. Can't wait for the dinner. Super excited. Really good stuff. I mean, you're off to a great start. Succeeding John Wall and doing excellent work, creating excitement in the party, having forward-thinking ideas about how to move and change. Very grateful for you. Grateful for your friendship. And thank you for coming on the show, Scott.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, sir. Take care, buddy.
All right. Well, there it is. We're up against another break. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. Brian Dawson filling in for Andrew McLean. We'll be back. All right, we're back. Last little segment here before we wrap it up and turn it over to Leland Live. Um, I'm Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for the great Andrew McLean. Grateful that they let me come in here. You know, I'm a bit of a controversial guy. I don't know if you know that about me. Have a hard time going and speaking in public without death threats and cancellations and all those type of things because I say really basic common sense stuff. Speaking the truth in a world of lies is dangerous business. I've learned that. But I'm going to keep on speaking the truth no matter what, come what may, whether it's popular, whether it's not. We have a civilization to save, and we're not going to save it kicking the can down the road. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that if you stand up to the truth, stand up for the truth, if you stand up against the insanity, you'll be called mean names. And unfortunately, it's a sad state of affairs that evil only prevails when good men do nothing. And so often we've seen men that we thought were good men ended up doing nothing because the cost of standing up and doing something would be getting called mean names, maybe losing your job, maybe, having to deal with, some HR violation at work or something like that, whatever it is. But specifically, the mean names seem to do it. If you speak the truth about so many basic things that you can casually observe just by looking around society, you will be called a racist. You will be called a fascist. Again, I don't advocate being racist or fascist. However, those are the names that they label people who are effective at stopping their attempts at destroying our civilization. These Marxist, communist, atheist, secular, humanist, all the things. Okay, these people who are working to destroy our civilization, and they've been very successful in their efforts. And every once in a while, there's someone who will stand up and actually be effective at resisting it. Someone like Charlie Kirk, say. And what did they call Charlie? They called him a fascist. They called him a racist. Well, calling him a racist fascist didn't stop him. And so what did they do? And the whole point of labeling someone as a fascist is that fascist is the ultimate evil in kind of the ethos of our country and the ethos of the post-World War II West. Fascist and Hitler is like the worst thing in the world. And so they'll call you literally Hitler, or they'll call you a fascist. And the point of that is labeling you that so that the crazies will kill you. We saw that with Charlie Kirk, assuming that guy was the guy that actually pulled the trigger and his motivations were what they were, or whatever, whoever it was that killed him, whatever that was. Charlie Kirk was effective at stopping this communist Marxist march through the West. So he was labeled a fascist and he was ultimately killed. Okay. And the point of labeling you a fascist, one, is that by labeling someone a racist or a fascist, 95% of people in America don't want to be called racist. So they just immediately are like, again, I'm not advocating actually being racist. I'm saying you can just use common sense and be effective at stopping the left, and the thing that they will call you because it works is a racist or a fascist. Okay. We will not save our civilization without getting called mean names. We will not save our civilization without getting called mean names. But here's the ticket, guys. Our children and future generations will face a whole lot worse than mean names if we don't hold the line, right? So this show's called The Line. Okay, we have to hold the line. It's up to us. It's up to our generation to take the mean names, the potential job losses, all of these things. Think about our forefathers and the things that they were willing to lose, and the adversity that they were willing to go up against, whether that was dying, bleeding, disease, loss of their fortunes, their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, willing to risk it all for what? To preserve a civilization and a way of life. Everyone says it was over 2% taxes or something in the Boston Tea Party. That wasn't it. They were preserving a way of life, okay? And that is under attack. And just think of what those who have come before us when our civilization was under attack. And again, I would encourage you to go and study Western civilization. One of the greatest books I've ever read is The White Horse King by Dr. Benjamin Merkle. He wrote a book called The White Horse King about King Alfred the Great. I bet you don't even know who that is, or you saw some stupid Netflix show that completely depicts it in an erroneous way. But he was a king. Well, I'm not even getting into the story. It would take me to the end of the show to do that. But he was up against insurmountable odds. You look at the Crusades, up against insurmountable odds to stop people from destroying our civilization and way of life, and people fought and gave everything. Meanwhile, here and today, we aren't willing to be called mean names. And I want to just reemphasize this point. If we're not willing to stand up against the mean names and the canceling, what our children and future generations will face will be far worse than mean names and job cancellations. I hope you see that, and I hope you understand that. Look at what's going on in England right now. Look at what they're up against. 250,000. I'm going to talk a lot about this tomorrow, by the way. 250,000 white British girls were targeted because they were white and British by Pakistani Muslims, and they were systematically targeted, raped, trafficked, kidnapped, forced to marry, forced to convert to Islam, forcefully impregnated, forced to have abortions, and they were raped because they were white, and they were raped because they were British by these people who are coming to conquer. Those people are here now in America, and they want to do the same thing. America is the crown of Christendom. It's the crown of Western civilization. This is the ultimate goal. Europe was great. Now they want to do that to America. And if you're not willing to be called mean names, you will see what our nation's daughters will face the same future that England's did if you're not willing to make a stand now, if we don't hold the line, okay? That's my parting benediction to you listeners. I'm Brian Dawson. I'm the CEO of 1819 News, and I've had a wonderful 4 hours with you. I'll be back tomorrow. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. I'll be back.